Blue. A poem essay and a meditation on the color of hope in times of hopelessness. The most vulnerable moments are when you arrive, and yet they inspire mystery, and not just because of their rarity. I'm reading a dream interpretation book. Recurrent dreams of blue butterflies crossing my path have been on my mind for some weeks, ever since the lockdown. A blue butterfly sighting is a good omen, it reads. It's time to embrace change and have faith in the future. In other words, it's time for hope. In another dream, the endangered purple emperor butterfly visits me nightly and makes of himself a pagan offering each morning, making of me a collector of rare beauty and of dead things, a reminder that nothing, not even beauty, lasts forever. He comes in, remembering to close the window behind him, at times stirs glassy poetry, trembling like the window. At times breathes incense over me, softly, like I'm his widow. At times brings me offerings, like the purple emperor, but it doesn't last. Still, I lie patiently, like that butterfly he left here, as if I need proof that nothing lasts forever. In yet another dream, a lone, common blue butterfly, native to southeast England, is hovering at the edge of a cliff top. Every time it dares fly out and off the edge, it disappears like a trick of light against the blue sky or sea. Then, as suddenly, it reappears on land, its wings beating furiously, even bluer than the sea and sky beyond it. I am mesmerized by nature's magic trick. Maybe it's another blue poem. Perhaps it's the curtained hours, their sad courage under fire, their inarticulate dumb desires, begged for, then let go. Perhaps that's what I bade farewell to on that cliff-top path, with fine views out to the raging sea, covering the rugged coast with megaliths of love, almost. I wake up and I wonder what it all means. Am I missing my adopted country yet? I lived in England for 18 years and left almost a year ago to settle in Slovenia. I haven't looked back, except in my dreams, it seems. Is it a metaphor for Britain's recent isolationism, its fear of losing its national identity, whether in the blue flag of the European Union or simply an island drifting off into the blue, all alone? Or is it a symptom of the self-isolation we're all experiencing at the moment? Billions of people islands all over the world, each of us a common blue butterfly, perilously teetering at the edge of some cliff, but desperate to leap into the blue beyond, to fly over seas to undiscovered countries, to dare to hope in hopelessness. Glob, blob, a blob goes the sound under the pearl-pimped sea. Above, lovers navigated by heart, embroidering a swaying poetry in patterns richer than all the gems in the deeper seas. They risk new fabrics cut with the lure of undiscovered countries beyond these. Below, in the murky depths, oyster shells babble too, blue songs of pearly longing. All these blue butterflies, these omens and dream signs, got me thinking about the confluence of rare blue butterflies, almost all endangered, and the colour blue, blue being the rarest colour in nature, an artist's propensity in the modern era to depict deeply seated, troubling feelings in blue hues. Artists such as Edward Munch, Pablo Picasso, Yves Klein, Derek Jarman, and filmmakers too, Krzysztof Kieslowski, Tim Burton, Baz Luhrmann, and others. Feelings which seem to bubble up to the surface in times of crisis, whether personal or global, in other words, times such as these. It seems to me that blue is the colour of hope in hopelessness. It is the colour of mysticism, fantasy, travel, whether metaphorical or literal, transmutation, and even metamorphosis. The Proto-Indo-European origin of the word blue, bel, meaning shine, flash, light, means not simply bright, but also blindingly so. Blue means to be blinded by brightness, a beautiful idea explored in Derek Jarman's film Blue from 1993, about his temporary loss of sight towards the end of his battle with AIDS. It is an intensely personal exploration of the colour blue. The film contains no imagery other than a flat blue screen, and Jarman described it as a blank blue film, a film with no images. But it is an image, a single shot of the bluest of blues. In an interview, Jarman once said that it is a film dedicated to Yves Klein, who perhaps more than any other artist made out of his short life a single-minded pursuit of achieving a perfect, transformative, transcendental hue of blue. He named it International Yves Klein Blue, and his ambition was to paint as much of the world with it as he could. Tree branches, living sculptures, and of course, canvases. He even had a plan to paint Cleopatra's Needle blue. But Jarman's blue is also, by his own admission, a self-portrait. The AIDS-infected artist had at the time of its making begun to lose his sight, and the resulting film is an exploration of his personal struggle with this aspect of his illness, as well as a celebration of the inner vision which could only be approached through a removal of all others except the blank blue of his film. I watched the film. It seems that the screen is permeable plasma, pulsating with every word in an ocean of sound, an almost monkish meditation on the colour blue. Jarman poured material from his hospital diaries as well as his book on colour, chroma, into it, and dealt with the colour in the concrete medium of film and in the very abstract medium of text, rendered in voiceover. It is a metaphysical film about what the colour blue meant to him, and it was the one colour he could turn to at the end of his life, in search of hope, healing, and humour. It is also a funny film. Jarman always combined deathly serious subjects with the outrageously funny. It was his modus operandi. And it is curious, at least, and at last, that at the edge of his exploring and at the extremity of his experience, the colour blue was able to accommodate both. Rarely occurring in nature, there are few animals, insects, and minerals that are actually blue-coloured. When they are, it is a trick of light. There is no naturally occurring blue compound to colour them. Instead, blue is often an optical illusion, such as the light reflecting off of a Ulysses butterfly's wings, which is not caused by a naturally occurring colour pigment, but is the result of the structure of the individual scales of its wings. It's a structural colour. Blue is one of those colours that is everywhere, sea, sky, earth seen from space, but so difficult to get to grips with, since it is, after all, a flash of light. It is a contradiction. It recedes from us like the sky and engulfs us like the sea at the same time, an effect that Jarman recreated in his film, and Klein also in his flat blue paintings, whose special matte properties allow the viewer entry into pure pigment, to permeate the painting surface with the eye and mind, if only for one transformative moment. Afterwards, the painting becomes a painting once again, a canvas on a wall. The viewer steps out of it, but its siren call of blue entreats us to return, to walk through the portal of blue and be transported into another spatial and temporal realm again and again. Another film about the colour blue, also from 1993, is Krzysztof Kieslowski's Three Colours Blue. Philosopher Slavoj Žižek describes it as a confrontation with the ultimate horizon of our experience. Julie, the heroine of the film, is suffering from trauma as a result of a car accident in which she has lost both her husband and her daughter, last seen unwrapping a lollipop whose wrapping is blue. Though ever present on the screen, Julie is mostly silent. Instead, the color blue and a musical score speak for her, perfectly matching her changing emotions. Blue signifies contradictory meanings. It is both serene and sad, soothing and scary, ever-present and distant, comforting and cold, in the film as in reality. To achieve the bluest blue, Kieslowski also wrapped the camera entirely in blue filters during shooting, literally immersing us in blue. The heroine is wrapped in blue when she swims, sleeps, approaches a window. At one point in the film, she destroys all material reminders of her former life with her family, save for a blue chandelier. There is a love-making scene in the film towards the end, where Julie is portrayed as though suspended in a bluish body of water behind a glass pane, and the camera pans up into black nothingness. Zizek describes this scene in terms of blue's ability to conjure a mystical reunion of reality and fantasy. However, Zizek notes, this magical suspension of temporal and spatial limitations, this free-floating fantasy space, far from distancing us from reality, enables us to approach reality. Blue, it's a mystery. As with the film Three Colors Blue, Tim Burton's film Edward Scissorhands from 1990 shows us a blue vision of the world as seen through the eyes of its protagonist, Edward Scissorhands. In this heavily colour-coded film, Burton contrasts the mid-century pastel kitschiness of the ordinary world with the grey-blue of Edward's Gothic vision. Edward lives in a dark castle ruin on a darker hill, and streaks of bright blue only spark when he is being creative, most beautifully rendered by his carving of ice sculptures. There is a night scene where his frenzied ice sculpting generates a snowflake-like shower that illuminates the ice sculpture in a bright blue light, generating a preternatural radiant glow in the dead of night. In this film, blue represents hope and fantasy made real, even if only in ice. Burton's colour palette always includes a dark, mysterious blue. It is intimately tied to the influence of dramatic German expressionist cinema lighting upon Burton, only updated and enriched by a blue tint. Strangely, blue is the liveliest colour in Burton's film, even though he attributes it to creatures of mystery, ghosts, monsters, and the undead, who are portrayed as more alive than the living. Pablo Picasso's so-called blue period of paintings, made between 1901 and 1904, and hailed as the decisive moment in his career, were the direct result of the recent suicide of his close friend, the poet Carlos Casagemas. Picasso was in mourning and in a melancholy state of hopelessness, and he expressed it through a series of stark, monochrome paintings, tinted with shades of an emotionally dark blue. The painting La Vie, from 1903, began as a self-portrait, but soon took on the features of his friend, the late Casagemas. One among the paintings struck a chord with poet Wallace Stevens, who interpreted The Old Guitarist, from the same year, in his poem The Old Man and the Blue Guitar of 1937, in terms of a blue music that creates its own reality and not reality as it is. Except the blue reality that comes from the blue guitar is real to the guitarist. It opens with these lines. The man bent over his guitar, a shearsman of sorts. The day was green. They said, "You have a blue guitar. You do not play things as they are." The man replied, "Things as they are changed upon the blue guitar." And they said then, "But play, you must, a tune beyond us, yet ourselves, a tune upon the blue guitar of things exactly as they are." So blue means to sing to your own tune, even if it is a sad one. The intake of air is music, life playing the late August wind, out of tune but in time, jazz flower arranging rococo bulbs unplugged, while the oboe's soothing current wears us out. There is tremendous courage in confronting difficult emotions in ourselves and others, and this is something symbolist painter Edward Munch rendered in his inimitable way in his enveloping blue paintings. Munch is a master of blue, and his 1892 painting, Kiss by the Window, is perhaps his bluest work of all. In it, an electric blue light wraps a kissing couple in the melancholy veil of their emotions. Roberta Smith, an art critic and an admirer of Munch's, describes the blue in his painting as a powerful sweep of shadow, form, and feeling. Munch's scholars emphasize his sensitivity to the play of light and his ability to endow color with emotion. Munch used blue hues to confront uneasy emotions and difficult encounters. It's the color of ambiguity. He also used many pigments and media in his paintings, from oil paint to tempera to wax crayon, layering the paintings in a manner Smith describes as more stained than painted. Above all, Munch made blue the color of immersion into the deepest depths of emotion and psychic activity, paving the way for later artists such as Picasso, Klein, and Jarman to expand its psychological and spiritual dimensions so that blue came to represent that which is most deeply personal and mystical in us all. One of the most iconic images from Baz Luhrmann's films, all of which can only be described as supersaturated with color, is of the meeting of Romeo and Juliet through the blue lens of an aquarium in Romeo plus Juliet from 1996. The young lovers meet for the first time separated by a wall of blue water. On the one hand, it is a distancing mechanism, a physical barrier, while on the other hand, it is the perfect amplification of their emotions, together with their images, both of which are magnified in the blue medium of water. The wall of water between them renders them silent, but their interaction, a flash of a smile, a brief glance, is a sort of love mime unfolding before their and before our eyes. Their emotions are given form, they are free-floating elegantly, euphorically in a serene screen of blue. Another optical illusion, another play of blues push and pull on our emotions. Blue here is the bright blue hope of first love, with all its illusions and hopes magnified. For a fleeting moment, the lovers dare to hope, and with them we do too. Let me keep it, your kiss, in the blue bell jar of fragile memory. Let me shield it from the oblivion of time, for after all, your kiss, a talisman against forgetting, is also mine. Finally, to return to the blue butterflies. A beautiful specimen, the Obina olive-wing butterfly, is the only known butterfly, and indeed only animal on Earth, that has evolved to produce genuine blue pigmentation, rather than through iridescence or trick of light. Butterflies are curious creatures. They are actually moths that evolved to be active during the day. Once they adapted to communicating with light and embraced the full spectrum of color, blue being the rarest of all. In mythology, they often represent metamorphosis on account of their wondrous life cycle, during which they undergo several transformations from caterpillar through to butterfly. But butterflies are also an evolutionary wonder. Blue is a late color in evolutionary terms. Even blue eyes are colored by structures rather than pigment. Blue things in nature are most often an illusion. If you hold up a blue jay feather to the light, it is drained of its blue and turns brown. While all other animals use refraction to produce this rarest of colors, the olive wing has evolved further than any in the elusive pursuit of blue. So perhaps it's time to think of the evolutionary miracle that is the olive wing butterfly and take inspiration from it. Perhaps, too, it is time to think of the color blue, which is thought of as one marker of human civilization, also in terms of future survival of our own species. Can we evolve together with and through the color blue into a more hopeful state of mind and realize our hopes for ourselves and for others?